This week's episode is brought to you by Gaines Sports Gear. Embrace the process. And you too can embrace the process by ordering yourself some Gaines load and lock grips and using our code LOVERS10 at gaineswithazsportsgear.com. And now, to the episode.
Hey everybody.
What's going on, world?
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
That was not for you. That was for the listeners.
That's why I be trying to be quiet sometimes. I don't know if you're going to be talking to me or talking to
I'm not talking to you this time. We're just here together recording.
Respect.
But thank you for tuning in. This is another episode of Lovers Quarrel. As always, I'm your girl Dani.
I'm your guy TJ.
And this is episode 26. I have no sports affiliations, like I told you.
Well, Zilla said it should be called Charles Woodson, so Charles Woodson episode.
What, this is, but his NFL?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, a little shout out for him. But anyway.
The NFL is trash and canceled.
Facts.
So.
I mean, I don't like football anyway, so you
yeah,
ain't
but
heard me.
They yeah, that's I need to add that in. So we'll talk about that in a second too.
Your elevator?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we do have a guest.
We do.
A lovely lady in front of us named Amanda, who we will of course formally introduce later in the episode. Say hi.
Hey everybody.
But before we get into that, as always, we start off with our elevator talk. So I'm gonna go first.
Go ahead.
All right. Doors open, going down. Because I have a lot to complain about right now. First and foremost, before I forget, the NFL is trash for banning players from kneeling, and they should just throw everybody away.
So to play devil's advocate, is the NBA trash?
Well, I'll say this. So the NBA doesn't, maybe they frown upon it, but
you can't do it.
They can't.
You get fined for doing it.
I thought they didn't.
You have to stand for the anthem. You do not have to, so when LeBron wore the Can't Breathe shirts.
I thought that was fine.
Yeah, you can they can wear that, but they still stood for the anthem.
So you can have some sort of protest.
So it was still some type
Just
of
the whole team has to do it. So that's why. Because everyone came out with Can't Breathe shirts, then everyone is good. They still stood, but.
Okay, well, they have some type of protest. However, I feel like the NFL especially is caving to flyover country and thinking because that's not even why Colin Kaepernick kneeled to begin with. He did it in protest of police brutality and racial injustice. He wasn't protesting the flag. He wasn't protesting the national anthem, but he did it during that time because of what they represent and what's wrong with America. So the fact that the NFL actively then they had an opportunity. Okay, if the NBA had those rules, and the NBA is kind of whack for that too, in my opinion. But that was the NFL's opportunity.
I mean, it was also voted on
by who? By the owners, but not the players.
I think it was.
Are you talking about the NFL or the NBA?
No, NBA. I might as well the NFL. I'm talking about I think that's in the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay, so to bring that to the table, then the NFL, it was only the owners who, or that side of the fence that made this decision and passed, or the NFL as an organization, not the players, not the coaches, I don't know, or the owners, I'm not sure, but I know that basically it was not a agreed upon decision. Whereas if the NBA, they came to the table and they talked about it, then that's different versus somebody coming out with almost a unilateral decision and deciding that, no, you're not going to be able to do anything except for stand for the national anthem, or you can go in the locker room. Protests are meant to be seen. They're not supposed to be somewhere behind closed doors, because if you protest behind closed doors, who's there to see it? Who's there to even respond to it? So that's number one.
Okay.
They're trash, throw them out with Kanye.
You still hating Kanye?
I'm still not here for him. No.
Album drops Friday.
I'm with you on that.
I'm not here for him. His album comes out Friday?
Comes out Friday.
Okay. Well, his wife should buy an album, I suppose.
People still gonna buy it.
I mean, absolutely, people still gonna go to football games. People still gonna watch.
I mean, I'm not going to football games.
Yeah, but you don't even like football, so
exactly. So I'm here for it. I'm down for the cause.
People are still going to do all those things, but they kind of shouldn't. And then it's been a long week. Then I also had end of the school year blues, y'all. It was a day today at work. It is after Memorial Day weekend. We're so close to the finish line of ending the school year,
I'm
but
still going to school. Why do y'all still have class? Like,
Yeah, I don't get it. I thought like after testing, school should have been over.
they're tapped out, and my kids have to test one more time before the end of the year. I'm like, they don't care anymore. Like, and it's not fair because my kids have literally been testing at some point during the month since March, and they tapped out, and it's just like they're not. It's like fighting with them to make it to the finish line, to stay committed to doing something academic every day. That's hot. It's like spring fever combined with the heat combined with everything else. It's just a mess. And like today they really tried me, and they tried everybody, and like I am ready for the end of the school year because this is just the time of year where like like in a relationship, everybody needs space. I need space from them, and they need space from me because we're gonna say things that we're gonna regret, And then the last thing is, what the hell is a predate?
you know what a predate is.
I had to look it up on Urban Dictionary, but
That's when you date before you date.
it sounds stupid.
It's very stupid, actually. It's super stupid.
That's some new young generation.
Exactly, and my washed self is like,
Well washed.
anyway, was looking on Twitter, scrolling, and I'm seeing this stuff about a predate, and I'm like, oh, why is this a thing? Like, I thought this was like harkening back to like that $200 date convo that was always going on, but it says here on Urban Dictionary, when two people go out as friends, but one or both parties harbor feelings for the other, such meetings are used to gauge one's feelings for the other, usually precede the first date. Why?
But do both people know it's a predate?
That's a good question.
That's the question.
Because what if I think it's my first date and you think it's a predate? Like you're testing me out?
Yeah.
That's kind of mean, I feel like.
That's very mean. I feel like if that conversation isn't had, like, I'm thinking, oh, this is our first date, like, this is cool. And then you're thinking, oh, I'm just testing the waters. And if I never hear from you again, I'll be like, wow, like, you just
and then
threw
you
me
get
to the curb.
ghosted. Yeah. And then, too, I just feel like if you I guess from what I remember, and granted, I dated only, like, when I was a teenager. So, and then I've been with the same person. But
Years ago.
usually, like, we're out with, like, friends. So, like, you guys kind of maybe steal a moment or two to, like, and you're vibing with each other. And, like, you realize, oh, maybe we want to take this and make, go from, like, a group setting, to something more intimate where it's just me and you. And, like so the group outing would be, quote, unquote, the pre-date. Because then it's like...
Nah, it was a date.
It's not a date if you out with like a bunch of people.
Out with a bunch of people, it's like maybe if it's one other couple, but if you're with a bunch of people, that's
like
not
friends, like people who are not all in relationships with each other.
Yeah.
Then it's
but we didn't have that. I'm talking about for us.
What do you mean?
When we went to the movies, it was a date.
Yeah, it was a date, but when we first met,
that was a pre-date.
Like you can't call it a pre-date. Literally, the first time we laid eyes on each other was it was like a group. It was like a different friends, relatives, everything.
The first time we laid, that's when we was in Booker T.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't a date. It wasn't a pre-date.
That was my pre-date. I was testing you out. You didn't even know it.
Oh, whatever. Okay.
Basically, he's saying that guys know and girls.
Yeah. So.
We didn't predate. I don't know what that is. That's too much work.
Exactly.
That is way too much work. I gotta predate you before I date you.
Exactly. Either we is or we ain't. Period.
Right.
And dating is not even dating anymore. Like for me, dating means you're in a relationship. Dating now just means y'all talking.
Yeah, dating and being in a relationship are two different things.
Definitely.
Well, I'm gonna stay down with you. So my elevator is about posting fake news without checking your source. That grinds my gears.
Oh my gosh, mine's.
That grinds my gears. When you post an article and it's like false, it comes from some like weird ass website.
With like one letter spelled wrong, like in the like.
Yeah, or just like mad long for no reason, but it's like a fake story, and people are like, see, this is why black people can't do this, or see, this is why we gotta boycott this, and it's just like, yo, do you see that website? So you don't see that website. You just
did something happen?
You just grabbed the article and was like, let me post
share.
It.
Yeah. Did somebody like post something?
Someone posted something recently. I can't remember what it was, but I seen it and it grinded my gears. It was just like a fake story. It would be like LeBron James cheated on his wife. Mm-hmm. ... And then you go to this website and it's like not a real website.
Yeah.
So
They try to get you to buy like
But I
flat
feel
tummy
like
tea.
most people get their news from social media and not actual news pages. So it's like
That's
lots
why
of people don't check sources. They're like, oh, it's on Instagram, so it has to be true. Or, oh, it's on Twitter, so it has to be true. When people can pretty much say whatever they want. It's pretty much like Wikipedia. We can change whatever info we want.
If it don't come up on like New York Post, Daily News, CNN, Baltimore Sun, if it don't come up on like a reputable website, I don't.
Yeah, but people don't feel like feel the need to be discerning anymore. They just want to.
Yeah.
They
I
see
always check I always want to check my sources. I hate to be that person who said something and shit was false. Like,
it loud and wrong. But yeah, I agree with you. But I mean, this is why we have who we have in office right now, because fake news, and bots and Russia and Facebook got us to this point, because people, like you said, consume get most of their news from social media nowadays, and people don't feel the need to be discerning. Like, it used to be that you got your news from people who like went to school for journalism and took up an oath to like provide the facts, where now you can get your news from me, you can get it from your grandmother, you can get it from your second cousin, you can get it from that girl you sat behind in algebra class. But
my father always. So when I was younger, he used to make me like read the newspaper. Not make me, but if I wanted to ask, like if I'm gonna ask what's going on, he'd be like, "Here you go." Mm-hmm. Like my father reads the newspaper every day.
That was my mom.
Mine does too.
Yeah. I used to ride I remember like being on the train in New York, like riding home with my mom, and like she'd have the daily news out, and I would just like, I had nothing else to do, so I would like just look over her shoulder and just read the articles with her. And then in the mornings, my dad would always have on like the Today Show or whatever in the morning, and so that's how I got my like news consumption. And then also too, like anytime I had a question, my dad would be like, look it up. And like this was before like the internet was hardcore, like when I was really little. So you're talking about like we had like a set of encyclopedias in the house.
Oh,
and
too much.
I'm not that old, but like people had encyclopedias. And so like I would literally, if I was like, I have a question about like dinosaurs, he'd be like, here's book D, like go have at it. And then that would be it.
That's why you're smart.
That is why I'm smart. So thank you, parents.
Yeah.
Amanda, do you have any gripes, good things going on? Because we were kind of salty today, but anything that you want to get off your chest?
Right now, you touched on one of them, so that was definitely, the pre-date thing was one thing that I was definitely talking about. I really can't even think of anything else. It's been a pretty decent weekend.
Yes, we're coming off the holiday. Everybody loves a good extra day off.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. Well, in that case, doors closed. We are moving on to the relationship tip of the week.
Go ahead, you got that.
So our relationship tip of the week is a little controversial, but under the right circumstances, I think appropriate. I say, this is kind of my idea, sexting matters. So I say that to say, when you're in a committed relationship, and I'm not saying sending nudes. Let me clarify. Let me be specific. I'm not talking about sending nudes, because we've all heard and seen in celebrity worlds and possibly, unfortunately, in the real world, like where people do like revenge porn and they post things like that. That's highly inappropriate and illegal. But if you're in a committed relationship, sometimes there's nothing wrong with sending like a spicy little message during the day, or like if you're away with your girls or your guys for the weekend and you do that while like you're apart, just to kind of like I said, like spice things up a little bit. Like it doesn't hurt from time to time to do that, because when you're in, especially like, again, emphasis on committed relationships, and then maybe at the point where like you live together or you're married or there's kids, it's really easy to just, your text message thread looks like, what's for dinner? Can you grab this when you at Target? We need more toilet paper. And so throwing a couple of those in there, like, what you wearing? Or I can't wait till you get home. I'm gonna do this. It doesn't hurt, But again, disclaimer, committed, trusting relationships, not with a person you just wanted to predate with. So that is the relationship tip of the week.
It works for me.
Works for you?
Works for me.
All right. How do you feel about it?
I agree with that.
You agree with the disclaimer, with the
disclaimer,
parameters,
definitely with the parameters,
with the
of committed
parameters.
Relationship.
Mm-hmm. Oh, excuse me. So with that being said, you've heard the voice. Now we're going to give you the formal introduction. We have in front of us a lovely woman by the name of Amanda Lloyd. And Amanda is a alum of Towson University. That's kind of how we...
To you.
Yes, go Tigers. So we have that in common. She's also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and is working in marketing. And one of the reasons why we invited her on today is because TJ and I, this is a relationship podcast. We talk about how relationships impact people's careers. Like we did last week, we talk about how people, different perspectives. We talk to people who are experts on relationships, like Michelle Hope. But we also sometimes we need to kind of focus on sometimes the dark side or the downside of relationships. And while me and TJ always talk about how we can only speak to our own experiences, we can only speak to our own dynamic, and a lot of times this has to do with like us being together with only each other, or and monogamous and those types of things. So we love to have people on who've had different experiences. And in Amanda's case, she's had the experience of being in a relationship that did not go well, that did involve domestic violence. And so we wanted to welcome her on today and thank her first and foremost for being so open and willing to share your story with us.
No problem.
Well, so with that being said, I'm going to start you off with the first question. Is how did this relationship begin? Because every relationship's got a starting point. And so how did it go from how he started, the predate, to Amanda to here and now?
So the relationship started because it was somebody who went to Towson with me. They were in a organization along with me. And we were just kind of friends. He was a lot older than me. It wasn't a little bit. He was a lot older than me, 7 years. And because he was so much older than me, it was just very, it was different. Like, I looked at him as kind of like my dad. Like, oh, this is like the older guy who like likes me, and we're hanging out all the time and we're kicking it. And then it just turned into a relationship some way, somehow. After just going out more and more, you know, having our families meet, going in different settings, taking trips together. So that's kind of just where the start of it was.
And it was like everything was kind of, you know, rainbows and sunshine. And like, you were like...
I looked at him as like my best friend in the beginning. He was really somebody who I was like, this is my homeboy. Like, not only am I dating him, like he's somebody who I genuinely care about as a friend. And I thought even if something were to ever happen, like where, you know, it just didn't work out, or like mutually like, oh, you know, this isn't working, we would have still been friends in the end.
Got it.
When did the relationship begin to show signs of trouble?
About after like 3 months, I could say. So after about 3 months into the relationship, and we were friends for a couple years before. So
like officially dating.
Yeah, so like officially dating, I would say about 3 months into it, I saw some interesting habits and patterns that he had, and it wasn't directly at me, but it was towards other people. So that's kind of like, and then his anger would kind of lash out on me sometimes, and I would be like, okay, this is a little weird, but I didn't really think too deep into it. It was more so of okay, he's just going through a tough time right now. So, you know, I'm just gonna be a quote unquote ride or die and just let it rock and let him have his temper tantrum and then let it go.
Was this your first relationship?
No, it wasn't my first relationship. It was, I would say this is my second serious relationship.
Okay.
Because I had a high school sweetheart that I was with for a while, and then that broke off, and then I was kind of just on my own for a little bit, and then he came into the picture.
Okay. And how long were you together with him from like start to finish, like in a relationship?
I would say almost 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it was almost 4 years.
Wow. Okay. That's a really long time.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So you start seeing kind of the aggressive, and it's like I guess you're saying like, okay, it's not like always directed towards me, or maybe like I'm like a bystander to it. And I know sometimes we as people will sometimes be like, oh, this person is they're just upset. So like, you know, and we've all been upset. We've all like took it out on the wrong person. Yeah. But so it's kind of like started like the making excuses type of thing.
That's exactly what it was.
Okay. So when did it start to become more directed towards you? And then in what ways, like in what ways did it start being like coming towards Amanda?
Yeah. So I would say closer to like sometime between 6 and 8 months. Like that's when it started being like, okay, these are direct shots at me at this point. They started being verbal at first, and the verbal abuse was ridiculous. And it was like this person was somebody who I would see them direct that verbal abuse towards their mother, and then it would come right back at me because I would try to defend her. And I guess that was also like one of the first signs where people say like, you know how a man treats his like how he treats women by the way he treats his mom.
Yeah.
And I guess that was one of the first signs that I like honestly should have seen. But then I guess around like 7 or 8 months, that's when it became physical. And of course it was one small action of like, oh, like I'm just gonna nudge you, or oh, like I'm just gonna like push you. And then it became super duper physical where like they became like closed hand like fist and slaps and chokes, and it was a lot, just, and it happened very quickly. Like I have other friends who have been in abusive relationships, and I never saw it happen that quick with them. It was generally like, and then a lot of the time it was usually because somebody was going through something super traumatic in life. Like not saying that that's an excuse, but it kind of made sense on where like why it started and like why it ended. Whereas like with him, I didn't know that it was apparently a habit for him. Yeah. And it's something that he had done before with other girlfriends of him. But, you know, I never reached out. Like, I didn't want to know why, like, what happened with you and your ex-girlfriend, because that's none of my business.
Yeah, it's like, a lot of people don't be like, so, like, let me, like the Carfax. Like, let me get the Carfax on your exes. Like, let me check and see if you have any other, you know, what's the reason why y'all broke up, you know. What was your first reaction, like when it got to that physical, like, you know, where was your head at as the physical abuse started to progress, from like the nudge to the hand to the, you know, fist?
Essentially I was confused. Like that was the overall just like why or how, because I was always that person, like if a man ever put his hands on me, I'm gonna kill him. Or if a man ever put his hands on me, like I'm gonna get my daddy to like basically whoop his ass pretty much. And so it was just like, why am I letting this like keep going on? And it's just like, and then every time it got worse, it was just like I kept making an excuse. So it was really just mainly confusion. Like, do I leave? Like, do I stay? This person had also kind of had like some run-ins with like the law already, not necessarily for that specifically, but like just with like alcohol and, you know, things that were essentially, those were his triggers. And I didn't want him to get in any more trouble because it was like, oh, he was on probation or things along those lines. So I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna just keep my mouth shut. I didn't tell anybody. So it was really just confusing for me. And I was young too. Like I said, he was 7 years older than me. So at this point he was out of school and I was still in school. And it's like I had just everything on my plate. Like I'm trying to finish my classes. I'm trying to work full time at this time as well. I'm trying to, you know, make sure all my bills are paid. Just trying to live a pretty regular life. But I can't, because behind closed doors I'm living like in chaos.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when it happened, what was his, like, I guess, response, or how did he bring you back in?
You know, guilt trip. Like, oh, you're gonna leave me? Like, why would you do that? You know I love you. Like, that was always the big famous thing. Like, you know I love you. Like, I'm just going through stuff. He would try to, like, bring his stress from work into the situation and say, that's why I'm so stressed out. And then he would say, because he's stressed, that's why he drinks, and because he drinks, that's why he does X, Y, and Z. And then sometimes he would just act oblivious to it, and he just like, it's not even that bad. Like, wow. Yeah, like he tried to make excuses for himself, and again, me being young and dumb, I just went right along with the excuse. I'm like, you know what,
maybe
a
lot of pressure.
Yeah, and then I think the other thing was, we have so many mutual friends, like being in this Greek world, like
Yeah.
we have so many mutual friends, and it was like, oh my gosh, don't tell them, or and I'm just like, they have to know that you're doing this. Like, there's no way they can, and then they would see it and then not say anything, and that's what made it worse.
And that was going to be my next question, was like, was it easy? Like, were you able to? Did you want to hide it? Was it easy to hide, or did people see things? And so like, let me get a two-part. Like, did you actively try to hide like things? Because I'm imagining there would be, because for those of you listening, like, Amanda is probably like the same complexion as me, maybe like a smidge darker. And so, being fair skinned, we know like we bruise easy.
Yep.
And so, like, did you try to hide it?
I definitely did. He was really strategic. I will say that. Like, where I used to have bruises and stuff, I was able to like cut, like, because most of it would be like to like my middle body area, like my back. It was like a lot of hair pulling too. So it's like, and I have like really long hair. So it's like, it was things that you really wouldn't be able to see. There were like on occasion times where like my mom or dad, I would go home and they'll be like, where'd you get that from? And, I'll be like, oh, I fell, or, oh, I ran into something. I'm clumsy, trying to find any excuse to kind of keep them off my back. And the crazy thing was my mother knew, like, because my mother had been in an abusive relationship before my father. And she was like, no, like, I know what that looks like.
Exactly.
But she was just like, you know what, you're going to keep lying to us. And she was like, until I actually catch it, I can't say anything. Yeah. But she was like, don't bring that boy over my house.
Yeah.
So
I understand. And that, and sorry to cut it, the fact that you were saying that, like, people were a witness to it, some people, and, like,
it's pretty trash.
Didn't say anything, because it takes me back to, like, one time when I was in high school, there was, we had, couples. I was senior high school, so, people have been dating for, like, a couple of months or whatever, maybe even a little longer. And so that's like a long time for high school at that time. And I remember being in the classroom during my lunch period, and the teacher wasn't in the room, but it was a couple of us in there doing work. And this couple that was in our class was off to the side, and you could tell that they were kind of having like a spat, but they were like whispering, so we couldn't hear it. And then all of a sudden, the guy got up and like shoved the girl in my class out, like, so hard she like fell out the desk. And I just remember being like floored. I had never seen anything like that, like, face to face, like right in front of me. And for me too, like, even more conflicting thing was like, at that point I was cooler with the guy than I was with the girl. And so I just remember being like, saying to him, like, yo, what is wrong with you? Like, what, like. And, like, he stormed out the room. He didn't really say anything. And, like, I helped her up off the floor. And this is, like, 17-year-old Dani. So I really don't know what I'm saying or doing. I knew it wasn't right. And, like, I knew I said something. But, like, I just remember feeling so conflicted, but at the same time feeling compelled to say something. You know what I mean? Like, even in the moment. And, like, they're not together. They broke up not too long after. And it was very, it could be considered mild. But, like, the fact that, like, I was like, yo, that's a problem. Like, that's where you go when you're upset, like, that means y'all don't need to be together, or there's something more to it. So, not to go off too much in a tangent, but that really, like, triggers me, or like it makes me think, it's like, if you're witnessing something, like, I know people sometimes are scared or worried that, like, they don't, kind of like when people don't know what to do, they do nothing.
Yeah.
But like,
people are scared they're gonna lose their friend. That's
like,
really
that's
what it is.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you just like that, because I'll think back about like that, like, yeah, but like the good friends,
good friends tell you when you're
wrong.
Up.
Yeah, when you're like,
Did you have good friends tell you?
Yeah. So my friends that had an idea but weren't like 100% sure, it was like, there was one moment when I guess like everybody started really knowing. Like, we were at a picnic and like, he had shoved my phone in my face, like, but it was like, he's a big dude, so like, he's like 6'4", so it was like, he literally, like, he was calling me every name in the book for because he was drunk, and he had hit me in my phone, like, he took my phone out my hand, and then he had literally like punched me in my face with my phone. And like, my friends all like were just kind of scattered around and saw it, and like came up, and all of his, like, I guess, well, not all of them, but some of his frat brothers came around and, like, pulled me and him apart from each other. And I just remember, like, the one thing that stood out about that whole situation that it just floored my mind was, like, one of his neos were like, well, they always do this. Like, this is nothing new. And when I heard that, like, that was kind of like that's sad that that's what people now know.
Associate with
and
you
associate
guys.
with us.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's kind of like where, after that moment, I was like, you know what, maybe I need to figure out what it is I'm doing here. And even though I stayed for, like, basically a year and some change after that, that was the one moment that always stuck in my head, was like, they always do this. This is normal.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty tough. So with that happening, even though that was y'all regular, let's just say that none of his, like, frat brothers, like, ever intervened.
A couple of them.
Okay.
And those couple that did, I'm still cordial with them until that day, because it just shows who you are as a man. Like, that can still be your friend, but like I said, real friends tell you when you're doing wrong. Like, people make mistakes in life. And even though it was a consistent mistake he was making, like, those two specific frat brothers, I will never, like, I'm cool with them, because I'm like, they literally took him to the side, not even just that day, but on multiple occasions, like, you can't do this. Like, one, just as a man, that's not right. And two, you're putting a bad name on, like, our fraternity, because it's now getting associated with us. So that was just the one thing. Like, I have respect for them at the end of the day. Like, if you can do that, and even if you're like, you know what, it's not my business, if you could do that for somebody who you care about and is your friend, like, that's a genuine friend.
I agree. I definitely agree.
Oh, definitely.
So, like you were saying, like, you were in this relationship for upwards of 4 years. And I would imagine at times, like, that had to be, even though people know what's going on, but, like, there's no, you know, you're making excuses. People don't necessarily know what to say, or they kind of go roundabout ways about it. And I would only imagine that would start to become really, like, lonely or depressing at times, because when you're, like, holding on to something that's so, you know, traumatic and so frustrating and so scary, all of these, you know, adjectives, like, how did you cope? Did you even address those feelings of loneliness or depression, like, when you were going through the abuse? Or did you, and if you cope, like, did you cope it in, like, as healthy a way as possible, or maybe in unhealthy ways? Or at all? I
did cope. I didn't cope how I should have.
Okay.
Alcohol was a big coping mechanism, and I would definitely say that. And, you know, when I was hiding everything, it was definitely lonely. I would stop going home. I would stop really just kind of, you know, wearing what I wanted to wear, just because that was something that would, I guess, like, upset him. I wouldn't go out with my friends. There was definitely, like, a year and a half, close to 2 years, where I was kind of incognito from the world. Like, I was in this relationship. People knew I was in this relationship, and all you saw was the pictures on Facebook and Instagram, and that's all you were going to see from me. Like, and if I was somewhere, I was with him. I would never go anywhere by myself. I was kind of in this world, like, in this lonely room by myself, and he just kept coming in every now and then.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like.
Okay. I understand. Well,
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I know you did touch on it, like, you know, people kind of addressed it with you. Like, did you, and you weren't telling anybody, but when did you, like, tell someone, or was there anyone that you, like, confided in throughout the process, throughout the relationship?
There were a couple people that I confided in. One was who actually ended up being my boyfriend right after him. And it was honestly, like, he was one of, like, my best friends, because he was the only person that cared about my safety. Like, if he knew something was going on, or if I told him, he would, because at the time I was in Baltimore and he was all the way in PG County, he would drive all the way from PG County, come get me, take me to my parents' house, or let me stay with him, or, like, take me to his mom's house. Just be like, you just need somewhere to sit down and think, because he was like, you're going to literally go crazy if you keep staying there. And it was like, the dude knew where I lived. He knew how to get in my house. He would find any way to find out where I was. Oh, and I lived right across the street from his frat brothers. So that didn't make it any easier.
No.
But yeah, it was just, I don't know. It was crazy. Like telling people, it was a couple people. And then, you know, like I said, my mom knew.
Yeah.
But I didn't really want to say anything. And I would get in arguments with my parents about this person. Like, bad arguments.
Defending him.
Yeah, like, why don't you like him? Like, he's nothing but respectful when he comes over here. And he's like, they're like, well, he's not respectful to you, so therefore he's coming over here and putting a front in my face.
Yeah.
So that's not respectful at all. And then one of my line sisters knew. And she was just kind of through with me because she was like, you need to tell somebody.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where she ended up telling people.
Yeah.
She was like, because if you don't tell anybody, I am. Because she's like, I don't want to see you dead.
Yeah, that's definitely like another like thing I was like thinking about just now. Like, we like this. It could have ended really differently.
Oh yeah,
really differently. Like and that's it's so important to have. And I think that, you know, the good thing is like with your line sisters, like this is why, not necessarily the reasons why, but like this is the benefit and the beauty of like the relationship you build with like the organizations that you're in. It's just that's supposed to happen, which is you are there for somebody, and even when it's not easy, you know, because seldom doing the right thing is also the easy thing. Like, and you have to sometimes be like, listen, like either you gonna do it or I am, because. And, you know, that's when sometimes you send that text message or that threat, like when y'all are together and you're like, listen, Amanda going through it and we need to talk about it.
And that's what ended up I ended up in the hospital, and that's what ended up happening. They were like, what's going on? Was it him? Like, that was and that's sad that was the first question. Like, it wasn't like, oh, like, were you in an accident? It was like, was it him?
Wow.
And at first I lied. And then when they saw me when I left the hospital and they like saw how my face was, like I had broken my jaw. I had contusions everywhere. Like the back of like my ear was ripped. It was really, that was kind of the breaking point at that point where I was like, nah, this is wild. Like, I don't think I can be here. But once again, I gave him chance again.
After chance.
Because he was like, oh, I'm going to go to Alcohol Anonymous. Oh, I'm going to go to anger management. Oh, I'm going to go to church more. And of course, like, because I'm a person of faith and I'm a person that believes in, you know, giving people other chances, and I believe in forgiveness. I'm like,
redemption.
Yeah. And then it's like, he was, for a while, I would say for at least 4 months, he was like actively doing these things. I was like, you know what? Maybe he realized like that was like the final straw and that he needs to get it together. But then the drinking started back again, and then it was another repeated cycle.
Wow.
So when you decided it was over, how were you able to get out?
Realistically, I felt the only way for me to fully get out was like I had to file I filed a protective order. And 2, I ended up pressing charges against him. And that was kind of like the hard part of it, because in the back of my head, like, even though I wanted to hate him, I'm like, I still love this boy. Like, I have history with this boy. I really, I wish the best for him, even though I'm pissed with him right now. Yeah. I don't want the worst for him. But because during that time of, like, where we really weren't speaking at all, I figured out that he had a history of doing this. Like, I thought it was just me, and then I found out it was about 3 other girls, like, prior to me. And I was like, this is probably the wildest thing I've ever heard. And then hearing their stories, how they're so similar to mine, and then seeing them and seeing how similar they look to me. Like, it was like he had a type, and it was like this type are the people he gets in relationships with, and then these are the type of people that he ends up abusing.
Was he, like, I mean, even like looking the same like to you, even like being like an age gap as well?
Yeah, like
all of that.
I mean, I was the youngest age gap, but it was like most of the other girls were at least 3 to 4 years like younger than him, which I'm like, you know, we're adults, so that doesn't sometimes matter like after you're a certain age. But when I started dating him, I was 19. Yeah. So it was like, it was still a little weird. Yeah. But
and it matters though. But even yeah, of course, like the age gap, like, you know, 10 and 17 is a lot different than 20 and 27. But it's still that, like you said, like you even started off with like he not reminded you of your dad, but like it was like an older, more mature figure, somebody that you trusted, somebody that you felt would like protect you or that would look after you, and like a parental figure. Right. And So sometimes, yeah, even even that age gap of 3 or 4 years, in our 20s too, especially, I feel like that just in general too, sometimes like 3 or 4 years are like, you've hit a lot more milestones. Like you're talking about in college versus out of college, like, starting your career versus still trying to figure out what you want to do. And so those things like living, maybe quote unquote living on campus versus having your own place, all those things kind of like make somebody look like, oh, they got it together, that and that becomes like
it's an attraction.
Yeah, it's an attraction, and it's an influence that you may not even recognize, because you're like, especially in the beginning, you're like, oh, this person just has their stuff together, and that's what I'm trying to do while I'm here at this stage in my life.
Well, I have a...
Go ahead, babe.
So you press charges. That's still pending?
No, so the case, it went through. He ended up getting charged with it. He didn't do as much time as I thought that he was going to do, only because he pled out. Which is it's understandable, but it was given the day. He pled out the day of court, versus most people say they're going to plea out usually way in advance or before it even has to go to trial. So he only had to do a few weeks or something like that.
Really?
Yeah, and I just feel like I was disappointed in the justice system, because I feel like my life is worth so much more than that.
Couple of weeks. And
then it was you've seen the pictures, you've seen all of the evidence, and you found him basically guilty. But because he's I don't want to get in the max trouble, because I think the most time he could have got was up to a couple years. And it was his first, I guess, offense for domestic violence.
Yeah.
That was actually somebody else had pressed charges against him maybe 4 or 5 years back, but there were just inconsistencies in that entire trial, so they put it on a stat doc, and it just never went through. She had put a protective order on him as well, and I'm actually friends with her now, just because she's somebody who went through exactly what I went through with the exact same person who I went through. And it's not even, I think that he thinks that I brought her into it to be spiteful, but it's sometimes you need that support system.
Absolutely, who better than who that went through the same exact thing.
Exactly. And so she's honestly one of my closest friends now. I appreciate her. We just talk about life, when sometimes things get a little gloomy, or because it's coming up on the year after they finalized everything in the trial, and just sometimes I reflect on it. I'm okay, how have I changed? What's different about me as a person? So I'm grateful that I had her, and that she was there for the entire process of the trial, and that she was there the day of the trial. She took off work to come and support me, just because she was you might need that extra backup.
Definitely, because it's not an easy feat to face. It's not. Your attacker.
Standing there and telling somebody what they did and how they make you feel, it's hard.
Yeah.
Especially when you haven't seen them for a good little while. And then it's I was trembling. Yeah. I still have the transcripts from the entire case, and I was trembling. They told me multiple times, they're you need to slow down. We have a court transcriber. And I'm okay, I'm going to chill out. But yeah, it was scary. It was a scary feeling.
Now, your family knew that this was the situation. Do you have brothers or?
Yeah.
Okay. What were the men in your family? How did they feel about it? And I ask because I have a daughter, and I gotta think about that. You can teach your child whatever, but once they're on their own, they're on their own. You know, and if you're not coming, if Tatum doesn't come to me and say this is what happens, then it's kind of
So, my brothers, they were pissed, and the first thing was, where does he live? My dad and my uncle, on the other hand, my dad was pissed, and my dad also wanted to know where he lived, but I think my dad is older now. He's not the young run and gun that he used to be. My dad really just kind of wanted some explanations, and it probably would have still turned into a fight, but it was just a matter of we cared about you. We basically took you in. We supported you. When you needed something, we helped you. We treated you like you were family, and you're doing this to our daughter. So, and then also he didn't want me to press charges because he was like, that's a whole nother can of worms you're going to open. And he was like, you're already I was out of it at this point. Like, I was mentally distressed. I was traumatized and I just didn't know what to do with my life. My life was chaotic for a while. And my dad was like, I don't want you to have to deal with this. I don't want you to have to deal with this because it's going to be even worse. And up to the trial, like, I was getting threats. Wow. Like, it was crazy. It was honestly the craziest thing that you think that could have happened.
Wow.
Like, people showing up to my house, people stealing my tags off my car, people sending me, like, anonymous text messages.
Oh, my God.
Like, his current girlfriend, like, even to this day, still harassing me.
Wow.
And it was a mess. But, you know, I was like, he's not going to learn a lesson unless somebody goes through with what's going to, like, break him, which is his job.
And that's what I was just getting ready to say. Like, the charges against him were felony charges then, right? Yep. So then when you have to, like, apply for another job and you have to, like, you know,
it's on your record.
So I'm like, that to me, like, because obviously the justice system is garbage when it comes to some of these things because, you know, they're clogged and they're going to try and funnel people through as fast as possible, and that could be like sometimes the long-term consequence is like you are going to be stifled in your pursuits of, like, career moves because this is on your record. And I put that there, and, you know, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about that too, and even as, like, and I'm thinking about, like, what you said with your mom, and, you know, as a mother now, it's, and especially of a daughter, and that same, like, you know, I can't imagine, like, the type of, like, rage that I would feel because we talk a lot all the time about our daughter. We talk about being parents and stuff, and we're still new to it. We obviously don't have a grown child, but the level of, like it's so instinctual, like, to protect and to care for your children and to want to make sure no harm comes to them, because, like, that's literally our job. Like, I joke about it all the time where it's just like, you know what, it's like my job is right at this point, I have to keep her alive. Like, I have to keep her, like, fed and clothed and safe and warm. And so and then just, you know, you teach her.
Just you.
Not just you. Shut up. That's not what I mean.
Go ahead.
But, you know, when you, and speaking from a mother's perspective, like, when you have a baby, like, I say, you know, you love your parents, of course, and it's you know, unconditional for most people, but they've provided for you, they've taken care of you, so that's where that love is kind of, the initial love is stemmed off of. Any of your friends or relationships with partners is like, you grow to love them, like, you meet them, you like them, and then over time you love them. But when you have a baby, like, Amanda, when I tell you, like, it's so immediate, it's so, like, it hits you like a ton of bricks of, like, this person didn't exist and now they do, and now they matter more than anybody. And so, like, to think that, like, somebody from out there comes, and I don't care if you're 2, you're 22, you're 222, like, come in and try to, like, hurt what I made, like, brought to this world, and, like, and, you know, and poured into and helped grow, and, like, and there's so much to them. And I'm sorry to go off on too much of a tangent because this is your interview, but just, like, when I think about that, I get so angry, and, like, I can see why, and your mom recognizing the signs too. So, like, that's on top of it, like, rage, like, everybody gotta die. I'm sorry. And, like, that, and that's just how I feel. And, like, I don't know if you want children in the future, but, like, I know if you do, like, that feeling, and, you know, it's so infuriating that, first of all, anybody wants to do harm to anybody else, but then to someone that means more to me than anything else in this world. So I apologize for digressing, but I just felt like the maternal instinct, like, listening to you, I feel like the mother in me is like, oh my God, I'm going to kill somebody.
Yeah.
And I can imagine, like, how your parents felt. And
well, that's why I asked.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure it out, because, like I said, as a father of a daughter, I look at things differently. Like, she's gonna have boyfriends, you know. And I've said it before. I hate when people be like, "You're gonna be in trouble." Like, no, I'm gonna raise her right, you know. And I know your parents raised you right, but situations happen, and those are the things that you have to. Now I have to think about, you know. I have to think about that, and then when you said, you know, your father, he was enraged, which he should be, but he had to kind of think about it. He went back into parent mode. He's just like, I don't want my baby to have to go through this extra situation. Like, and that's the thing that I just kind of wanted to see. Like, what was that mindset? Like, you know, and
no, I get it, because then it's just like, do you want to see your child go through any additional stress and pain?
And that's what it was. It's like, that's where my parents disagreed. Where it's like, my mom was like, it's up to her. If she don't want to do it, I'm with her. If she does want to do it, I'll be there through every step of the way. But you need to make a decision, because you keep going back and forth is doing nothing but keep putting stress on yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas my dad is like, no.
Don't do
like,
it.
She already been going through this for years at this point.
Yeah.
Like, she was like, trial can take years
on top of that.
months, years, whatever it might be, given whatever evidence might come into play. Like, this was one of those situations, like, the U.S. Department of Justice took my case. So that's like where it was, you know, it happened in D.C. and D.C. has like one of the strictest policies on domestic violence. Like, if you even get a call for it, you're automatically arrested, like, no matter what the story is. So basically, when I went to the police station and I told my story, even though it had happened, you know, a little bit prior to it, they still went and got him and picked him up and basically, you know, arrested him, booked him, and then he apparently had a warrant for something else. Didn't know that. But they kept him in jail. I guess he got out. Somebody came and picked him up. And it was just months of waiting. And then him changing lawyers and, like, prolonging the process. And it was so, like, it was what my dad said it was going to be. And there were times where I was like, I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have done this, because then it was like everybody started knowing. And I wasn't trying to tell people at first. I was like, you know, I just kind of want to go through this trial. The people who have as witnesses and the people who, you know, are like close to me, that's all that needs to know. But it became this big thing. Really? And it was like people were talking about it on social media. There were like arguments in public. You know, we went to the same school. So it was like events would happen. And even though I had a protective order against him, I felt like I don't want to cause a scene because he's here, even though he should not be here. Yeah. So it was stressful. It was stressful.
Yeah, that definitely is, especially like when like you said, those circles that you run in, like there's and Maryland, Baltimore, small worlds, and then the Greekdom makes it even smaller.
Yes.
Let me ask you this. In, like you said, like you found out some of his history and stuff after you really kind of like cut ties with him. Did he come from an abusive household that you know of?
I don't think his household was abusive. I think that his father was absent.
Okay.
So I think that definitely had a part, and he doesn't know how to treat women. And I think that I can't say it 100% sure, but to my knowledge and the way that he's spoken about it, I think that his mother has had a few partners that have been abusive towards his mom. So when you don't have your dad there, and then, you know, when you occasionally see, you know, different men running in and out of your mom's life, and I'm not saying, again, not an excuse, but, you know, that's your only image of love. So if that's like your only depiction of how you're supposed to love people or handle conflict, then that's generally what's going to come out.
Got it. Okay, I was wondering about that, because they, you know, they always say cycles. These things are cycles.
Yeah, and that's where I thought it was. I mean, I think a lot of it was anger. I think that's really what it wasn't even just abuse. It was pure anger, and then him taking it out on the wrong people.
Got it.
Like, his dad didn't claim him. Like, his dad's alive and, like, doesn't claim him even till this day. Like, I've even been in social settings where he's been like, those are my kids, and he's not, while he's there.
Wow.
So it's like, I know if somebody, like, my dad ever said that to me, like, my dad has other kids that aren't from my mom. Like, if my dad ever said that to me, I would, one, be heartbroken, and I'd be pissed too, but
it doesn't justify.
It doesn't justify you acting crazy. You know, you could be mad, but be mad either in solitude or figure out a way to cope with it.
Yeah, but see, I'm not I'm not a big believer of putting hands on women
at all,
because it's like, and not to be sexist or anything, men are stronger than women, and your punch may hurt, my punch may do more damage.
Yeah.
So I think that's the bigger issue. And to kind of touch back what you said earlier in the conversation with like people saying that's just what y'all do. You know, that's why that you had to endure that. Any man who sees it going on should be able to say something. Period. And you know, I know that in our society it's like, you know, well, that's their business. Let me stay out of it. But if it's in a public setting, someone has to say something.
And the crazy thing was that phone situation, I'm the one who got escorted out, not him.
Really?
And I wasn't even the one that was drunk. He was. But because I was the one that apparently enraged him, I had to leave. And it just showed me how messed up of like a world we live in sometimes. Yeah. Like, I'm like, this dude, I'm only 5'7". Mm-hmm. This dude is, well, at the time, he was like 230 pounds. Mm-hmm. He's 6'4". He played football in college. Mm-hmm. Like, he's a strong dude. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like I was getting love taps. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I was getting blows to my body. Like,
yeah.
And the fact that you look at me as a threat, that's a problem.
Yeah. There's a lot of undoing and fixing that we as a society and a culture have to do in order to make sure that these things don't happen anymore, or that when they do happen that they're nipped in the bud, because that, like, I can't see how anybody, if based on how you're describing it, like anybody's there and it's just like, no, she gotta go. Like, what? Like, and like I'm funny, I wish we were like filming this episode, because like I feel like I'm making faces, like my jaw is like going to the floor with some of the things that you're saying, because you're not, and I'll say this, you're not the first person I met who's endured domestic abuse, and you probably unfortunately won't be the last, but you know, I've never really had like that sit down, like in-depth, like questions lined up ready for it. And so it floors me sometimes that this is like still a problem, because you know we're all in our, you know, 20s and 30s, like this is where, you know, we're supposed to be the progressive and the, you know, understanding generation, and how we know that these things are wrong. We know smoking is wrong, but how could we not realize that like domestic violence is wrong? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I guess, you know, kind of bringing it down to the home stretches, you know, in hindsight, I know you said that there were some little things here and there before, let's say, were there any, or even if there was one, like sign that you think you might have like ignored or missed? If you, when you think back on it, you were like, if that was like I should have been like, something's not right. Like, do you have a moment or something like that?
I wouldn't say it was just like one specific moment. Mm-hmm. It was just because, like I said, everything happened quick.
Yeah.
It was really just when it got to the point where I knew it was crazy beyond like mm-hmm. what I would even think was acceptable. Mm-hmm. Like I can handle some yelling. Like mm-hmm. I can handle you screaming at me. Like I have several kids in my family. Like mm-hmm. I deal with temper tantrums on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. I can deal with that. But like once it became physical, okay. That's when I should have, you know, been like, absolutely not. Yeah. Like even from like the first push, like I definitely should have just left. And you know, those red signs, those red flags are things that people really need to understand. Like a relationship is toxic. Mm-hmm. Like if a man is willing to put his hands on you, and I'll even say vice versa, because there are some females out here that beat the crap out of some men. Yeah. Like vice versa. If you ever feel the need to really harm somebody, like it's not like, you know, I've been in relationships where like, oh, we play fight. Like, mm-hmm. oh, you know, like I'll grab you. Mm-hmm. Like I'll throw you on the couch, like just out of like being fun. But if it's something that's like pure aggression, mm-hmm. then that's not a relationship you need to be in. Like it's toxic for you, and like nobody that loves you is going to put their hands on you like that.
Definitely. Now that some time has passed since the relationship, the abuse, and the subsequent like consequences for his actions, the pressing charges and everything, have you dated? You said, I know you said you were in one relationship right after. Mm-hmm. How, like, are you currently in a relationship or dating?
No. Right now I'm just just kind of living life.
Yeah.
I'm traveling more.
Great.
That's kind of one of like my main things that I'm doing is like I'm always on a plane.
Dope.
Because it's just like I was isolated for so long, and there was like, you know, I never had a spring break. Like I never got to go anywhere, or I never got to really road. Like yeah, I went to AGP, but that doesn't count to me. But like, you know, I wouldn't really get to go out like a lot of the other people that I saw in school did. And it wasn't that I like, you know, some people can't afford it. It was the fact that I was in this relationship where I couldn't go anywhere. Because if I went somewhere, then apparently I was going to be acting crazy, which isn't the case at all. But it's like now I'm just kind of taking some time for myself. I'm going on and just traveling. I'm spending more time with my family. You know, like my parents are getting older, so I want to spend as much time with them as I can as possible.
Definitely.
You know, I have nieces and nephews. I have siblings. Just spending time with them because, you know, tomorrow's not promised. And I just think every day, like, my life really could have been taken at some point. Like, I was in the hospital. Like, I was in the hospital because of this dude. And I'm just like, I'm not trying to ever feel like my life could be over. Yeah. Like, ever again. Like, that just everything has stopped for me and I can't do anything. So.
I support it. All here for it. Go ahead, babe.
I mean, she kind of touched on it, but with that, is there, like, do you tell, like, if you were to date, would you tell your new person that you're dating about the abuse?
Yes. And the only reason why, some people don't. And I understand that some things you want to keep in the past and you want to move forward. With me talking about it is a way of me coping with it. Because sometimes, you know, those feelings do come back up like, wow, like, I was really stupid for staying in that. And talking about it really just kind of helps, you know, release the stress of it, like kind of just get off my brain. And then kind of telling, like, I feel like whoever the next person I do date or become in like a committed relationship with, if they know like what I've been through in my past, like some people like to joke about, oh, you know, like don't make me punch you. And I'm just like, that grinds my gears because I'm like, you don't even know. Yeah. Like what I've been through. Like, because in my head, I'm going to take it seriously. Yeah. Because when he said it happened.
He meant it.
And I'm just like, I feel like they have a right to know because I still have certain tendencies where instead of arguing, I'd rather just shut out. And I feel like if they know my story and they know maybe why I do that, it makes a lot more sense because lots of the time, like communication is like, I feel like one of the most important things in relationships. And sometimes when you don't communicate, that's how big arguments start. And you really just can prevent so many things from happening just by saying a couple words or just by letting them know, like, this is what I went through. Yeah. And this is why I act how I act, or this is why I am the way that I am. And you can either accept it or like some of the tendencies that I have, or you can help me grow from it. Yeah. Like,
and it's important to let that person know, let that person in if you're really trying to go somewhere with them, because then they know, they know your history, so they know like what they can say and what they don't say. And then they also know like to look for signs when like, hey, you know, I can imagine like if you know, a guy was dating you and they'd be like, oh, she looks like she might be kind of going back to that dark place. So, like, let me, you know, because I know what it is, let me work to help bring her out of it or, you know, be there for her.
Well, that way, you know, nothing gets, like, projected onto them. Yeah. Because they may do something, again, they may be joking. And, you know, they may play fight, and
and then it'll enrage me, and then I lash out on them, and they're like,
"What's
Where'd
up?"
this come from?
Yeah,
she's crazy.
Yeah, because and that wouldn't be fair to them, because like especially if y'all really trying to build something. Let me ask you this: have you, because we listen to a lot of other podcasts, and they sometimes are like really big proponents of like therapy. Did you speak to somebody?
Yeah.
Okay.
I definitely went to a therapist, and I love her. And I found out she's actually one of my friend's moms. Really? And that's kind of what made it very interesting. And I didn't find out until maybe about 2 or 3 months into it because she's like, I didn't want to tell you whose mom I was. She was like, but I saw you in their yearbook. And I was like, wow, like that's really crazy. But she was super helpful. You know, one thing that she like told me to do, she's like, journal. Because like I said, you said being lonely, and that's really what it was. Like I had so many thoughts Like, and lots of my thoughts were really dark, and it's just like looking at myself like, wow, like maybe I'm not enough, or you know, you have these thoughts about yourself where, you know, even though they might not be true, if somebody is willing to do this, you're like, wow, like what am I worth? You know? And so just journaling and, you know, kind of sometimes just sitting down and like talking with like my close friends, you know, with my family, just about the situation, just every now and then. Like at first I was talking to them a lot because I had a lot to get off my chest. There was a lot I kept in, there was a lot I lied about the situation, and I just needed to like clarify a lot of that because, you know, lying to my parents was not what I really wanted to do. And just kind of like clarifying, you know, when this happened, this was why. When this happened, this was why. And even to my friends, because like even my friends were like, if you're not going to tell us the truth about what's going on, we can't help you. And like they didn't back off, like, you know, just exit my life. But they're like, if you're not going to tell us, like, we can't actively do anything.
Because it's like that helplessness too as a friend. Like I've been in situations where like I'm like, you know, and maybe not so much of abuse. The first thing that comes to mind is somebody like this, like cheating too, like, which is, I'm like, look, like, I can't help you. I can't, like, you know, if you don't want to, or even if they're having drama in a relationship, and it's just like, look, I can tell you this, I can give you the tools, I can do it. I was like, but I can't physically drag you kicking and screaming. So it's just like, but, you know, and like, or you got to be upfront with me so that way I can, you know, I can help you. So I can understand that too, being the, like, you know, being in that circle, that village, when they really feel like they want to get you out of there, but they can't. So, go ahead, baby. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, what would you tell other people who's like in relationships, going through it, or maybe like seeing signs, like, what would be your advice to try to help them get out of it?
Tell somebody. Like, silence is literally saying one thing. Just tell somebody. And they don't even have to just be one. Like, just tell somebody that you know will do something. Not somebody who, you know, will just kind of be passive and you'd be like, oh, like, I'm sorry. Tell somebody who, because sometimes you're scared to do it yourself. And that was my main thing. I was scared to do it myself because I'm like, if I do it myself, then he's going to come after me. But if somebody else does it, like, I don't think he will go after them, especially if it was a guy, which is kind of the reason why I told the dude that I said it, because he doesn't put his hands on men. Like, I don't think he's ever been in a fight with a man in his life.
Most of them aren't, because they bitches, because they'll take all that, they don't keep the same energy. They got all the stuff for this animosity and aggression towards women, but then don't take it to a man ever.
Exactly. And the thing was, this person has gotten into at least 3 altercations with him. And it's like, me and him, we're not together anymore, but I respect him as a person as well. Like, we're still friends because you helped me get out of one of the darkest situations of my life. Like, you were willing to go talk to cops with me. You were willing to, like, kind of go through this process with me. And so even though we're not together, like, I'll always value him as a friend, and I'll always value him as that person. Like, you literally saved my life in my head. Like, that's how I look at it. You literally helped me save my life.
That's amazing. And those are the people you need in your life, because Lord knows. I guess, like I said, it's kind of like wrapping things up. Despite everything that you've been through, the good, the bad, and the ugly, what if you had to, you know, kind of sum it up? Like, how has what you experienced helped you become? And I know you say, like, you travel more, and you know, you're not passing up these experiences because you missed out on so much. But how has it helped you become the woman that you are today, the Amanda that's sitting in front of us right now?
I've gained a lot more just self-respect. Just when I look in the mirror, I don't feel like I'm down anymore. I don't feel as though, like, the world is always on my shoulder, like the world is against me. I have a lot more positive, like, people in my life, and got rid of a lot of the toxic ones that were around. I think that just me as a person, I've grown because, like, the tendencies I had when I was with him that weren't good for me or that were stunning my growth, you know, like, whether it be just the lying or the drinking all the time, or just, you know, the staying away and not being social at all those things that, you know, were really kind of breaking me down as a person, that's changed about me now. I know how to talk to people more. And I told myself I would never put my hands on anybody. Like, there were times where the relationship after, I was putting my hands on him because like we would get in really little arguments and I would put my hands on him because that's how I knew how to defend myself. Whether like with him, with the first person, it was everything was physical, so that like I needed to defend myself.
Yeah.
But whereas like with the second person, like we would get in small arguments, and because that's all I knew, that was all I did.
Yeah.
So it was just, just respecting other people as well, and kind of just knowing, like, going into my next relationship, the things that I won't tolerate from jump. And like I said, like, the self-respect is the most important key. Just knowing my worth and knowing that I'm valuable and being able to say those things to myself every day and being able to tell other people that as well.
That's amazing. You want to take that last one, babe?
Well, before we do that, have you thought about like being an advocate? I mean, you are an advocate, but have you thought about making yourself available to be an advocate for?
So I do volunteer. I volunteer in PG County at the Family Justice Center, and it's a center for women who are in abusive relationships to come file complaints, and we take them through the entire process of, like, whether they want to charge their abusers or whether they just need a safe haven, finding, space for them to live, whether it's a hotel, homes, kind of similar to, House of Ruth that's in Baltimore. Just being able to provide those resources. And, some people just volunteer places, but I'm a volunteer and I've also been through the situation. So a lot more people come and talk to me versus talking to other people who are like, oh, they just work in admin or they're just filling out the paperwork. Like, I have a story, and I always tell people that, I'm here to tell it because my story could help somebody.
Absolutely.
And, I've been on a couple different platforms with, like, the PG Police Department. They have a seminar for men. Well, it's men and women, but it's mainly geared toward men, called Momentum, and they have it like twice a year, and it's basically getting men on board of, getting help, like being in healthy relationships and knowing kind of just how to treat women, and showing, statistically PG County has a higher domestic abuse rate than Baltimore. So just knowing that, and like, it's crazy because I would have never thought that, but that's because most cases in in PG County end up in deaths because nobody reports it. And it's really sad, and I just don't want to be that person that because I didn't open my mouth, like in my situation, that somebody's life is lost or somebody doesn't have the courage to step out.
Yeah, and you touched on that, and it makes a lot of sense too, because like even in my chapter, my immediate profile, my number, she was murdered by her child's father back in 2008. They were in long-term relationship, and as best as I understand it, there were signs, there were moments, there were, of verbal and I believe physical, and, she got pregnant, and she had, so when I was online, like, that was when she was pregnant, and then she had her son the summer of 2007. Her name was Sheena Day, and her son wasn't even a year old, and I think they had broken up. She was living with, it was just her and her baby, and he came over and he shot her. And like, I remember that day so vividly, because even though, like, we didn't talk all the time because she had graduated before, like, I had crossed, but we talked and we hung out, during like homecoming and all those times like that. She was like this great spirit, and I had, and obviously, like, maybe she and I weren't in a place where we would have, like, that conversation would go that way, but it was kind of thing, like, you would have never knew that was, like, the relationship that she was dealing with, that was, like, her child's father, and, and he did all this, and the baby was, in the house, and so I remember vividly where I was when I found out, and, like, I had spoken to her the day before, because, and sometimes when things happen, like, I was like, let me call Sheena. I was like, and it was like, because we had another line coming through, and I was like, oh, it was about to be the time for, like, crossing and everything like that. So I was like, let me see what she's up to, blah, blah, blah. She's coming through. And the next day, just gone. And it always, it resonates with me, and it sits with me because of how Here Today Gone Tomorrow was, how like we like, I didn't, not to say I was supposed to be the one to know, but like how I'm sure the people who did know were trying to like help her, or how she was even trying to help herself, and getting away from that, and how it still wasn't enough, and there was a child involved. There's all these other layers to it, and it's so important that of what you're doing, of like your volunteer work, even coming on our show and just talking about it, because even if, like you said, one person hears something and is like, nah, or they see that how well you're doing, how you're thriving on the other side of things, that, it doesn't have to be the end all be all. It means so very much. And with that being said, because I know we kind of took it all the way up and down and through again, and we appreciate your honesty and your candor. All in all, are you happy now?
I'm happy.
Good.
I'm definitely happy. I honestly, I didn't think I could be this happy. And it's kind of weird to an extent because it's like, I'm really, when people say, oh, I'm living my best life, I literally feel like that right now. Like, I have the career that I want. I have the friends that have had my back for forever. Like, all my childhood friends are still in my life. I have my line sisters. My relationship with my family has gotten back on track. Everything just kind of fell into place, once that chapter was closed and it was like those final trial words were done, all the paperwork and everything was wrapped up. It was like, wow, I didn't think that, I thought that it was, going to be a slow journey, but it kind of happened quick because it's like I have my life back. Yeah. And that's where I'm at now.
So it's almost like you took your life off a pause, like you had you kind of hit play and it's just like you caught right up.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I think it's so important. And I took the time just to really quickly to look up, because when they talk about domestic violence, they always end it by talking about if you're experiencing this, you have the National Domestic Violence Hotline. And what's crazy is when I pulled it up, the first thing that popped up was a safety alert. And it's like, computers use can be monitored and it's impossible to completely clear, because they know abusers will go on the computer and they'll look at the history, you can clear all the cookies and and it's like, damn, you really have to be careful even when you're trying to get help, if you look it up on your phone or your computer. But if you're experiencing abuse, and you can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233, or if you feel comfortable looking it up. And there are, I read that one off, and then they can also direct you to the local chapters. That's such Greek to talk, but
but sometimes they call
chapters,
or chapters or precinct or counties or.
Yeah, and so in Baltimore City, there's the hotline is 410-889-7884. House of Ruth, which Amanda mentioned, is 410-889-8040. And there's all these other counties and everything listed too. All of Baltimore County is 410-828-6390.
That one was 889-0840.
For Baltimore City. Yeah. And for House of Ruth.
Yeah, I'm saying for House of Ruth, you said 889. You gave something different.
That's this one. See, now you're going to throw people off.
I'm talking about this right here. You did not. So House of Ruth is 889-0840.
Okay, we'll put them in the show notes so that way there will not be any confusion.
I just want people to be able to get the right number.
You're absolutely right, babe. So with that being said, we're going to wrap this sucker up and we're going to get to our quarrel. So we took it, we, flipped it and reversed it. We went talking to Amanda. So we're going to kind of bring the episode back up a little bit. We're going to have our quarrel for today. And our quarrel for today, and Amanda, please, again, feel free to chime in because oftentimes we need tiebreakers.
Okay.
Our quarrel is about complimenting. So, paying compliments. I am someone who will pay compliments to Mr. Byerson over here. Mm-hmm. But I don't get them as much as I give them. So I think it's important to sometimes even, to tell your partner that you look nice, or that was really funny, or that was really smart, or you're kind, or you're pretty, whatever. It doesn't even have to always be about the outside, the aesthetic. I think it's important to say all that. And I feel like sometimes I'm having to fight tooth and nail to get like compliments out of him.
Okay.
That's your quarrel. It's a quarrel. It means you gotta have a retort.
So I do give you compliments when I feel like they're.
Oh, so it's just like they're so few and far between opportunities.
I'm just saying. Honesty is the key.
Okay.
So I shouldn't just pay you a compliment because it's like I did it last week. I didn't do it this week. Let me just pay a compliment. So,
how long would you say you go between like compliments paid to me?
I mean, it's sporadic. There's no timeline. I'm gonna tell you when I feel like giving a compliment.
And how often do you think I pay you compliments?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Yeah. Know.
You don't. Okay. Do you think
you give me more compliments? Yes.
Okay.
But that's just who you are. Why can't we be two different people?
We can be two different people, but
I don't give compliments. Like it's just not something I do just to give a compliment just cause.
I give but I don't give you compliments just cause.
You give me compliments. You give me compliments when it moves you.
Yeah,
but when something in your body says, "He looks nice, babe. You look nice." So I do the same thing.
So you just don't see what he's trying to say is he just doesn't think I look nice most of the time.
No, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying
reading between the lines.
No, because you're gonna try to flip my words. What I'm saying is that if you wear this new outfit today, and then in 2 weeks you wear the same outfit, I'm not gonna give you a compliment for the same outfit. You already wore it.
But did you give me a compliment for the first outfit?
I'm pretty sure I did.
I disagree.
Okay.
Amanda, do you think it's important to pay people compliments?
I think it is. Even if, like, I know you say honesty is key, but you never know if somebody's having a bad day. Like, you never know. So, like, sometimes it's like she had a stressful day at work today.
What compliment could I have given her today?
Babe, you look nice. Like, babe, you look beautiful.
Babe, you look beautiful.
Whatever.
Babe, you look nice. See?
I think, and my thing is this: it doesn't always have to be about the aesthetic. It doesn't have to be that I look nice. It doesn't have to be like my hair is great. My I don't have any makeup on, but like it could just be something like even if I like.
Give me an example.
Like if I make a good joke and you'd be like, that was really funny, baby. You're really.
So I haven't done that.
You said you from time to time. The other day you told me I made a funny, and I was like, and it makes me feel good.
This is where it's like, I do pay compliments. If you're funny, you're funny. Like,
because where were we? We were just the other day. We were somewhere. Remember. We were with Paul and Mercedes.
Yes.
And I said something and you laughed and you were like, "That was great timing."
All right then. So I do that when I move.
So you just never. You're just like a rock though. You're just hard to move.
I'm sorry that it's hard for me to.
So unimpressed.
Yeah, but you know what?
I gotta work hard on my. I gotta bring my A game more often.
Yeah. You shouldn't be here with your B's.
I can't with this guy.
You know what I mean?
I can't.
A's get compliments.
A's? Not even a B?
Nah, that's too low.
See, I compliment and see. I think
B's deserve compliments.
I think so. Okay. I think they could do like a little acknowledgement.
All right. Like a snicker, like just like
yeah.
All right. So next time you have a B, I'm gonna give you the eyes. I'm gonna send you emoji eyes. That's my compliment. That means I see you. All right.
You see what I'm dealing with?
That's crazy. To me.
Like. This guy.
Listen, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna set a reminder on my phone.
Do it.
And I'm gonna
do it.
Give Dani a random compliment.
I would.
I think that would be nice.
I think it would be nice
That's
too.
Crazy to me.
I think it would be nice. It makes and this is when sometimes you gotta know your partner. Like it makes me feel good.
It could even be something like, "You're such a good mom." Like, you know what?
Thank you.
When you see like your child just running around and maybe acting crazy, and she handles it. You're such a good mom.
Thank you.
Okay.
You do. You agree. I know you agree that I'm a good mom.
Yes. You're an excellent mom.
So you can give me mom compliments.
Random compliment set. So every week I'm gonna give you a random compliment.
Is there any alarms you want me to set on my phone?
No.
About anything? It doesn't have to be about compliments. It could be about whatever. No, you can't nod. People can't hear you.
No, I'm thinking. Don't want to be X-rated or not.
Oh my God. On that note,
that's crazy to me. See?
No, we'll take that offline.
Oh, okay.
I already brought it up with look, we talked in the beginning I could send. Oh, you want me to send like a weekly sext?
I mean, listen. Yes. Yep. There you go.
That's what he wants.
Okay, I will plug that in my phone as well.
Because you're gonna give a tip that you don't do.
I'm a work in progress,
okay.
just like you are with compliments.
I mean, I'm letting you be great.
Pay me more compliments, I send you more sex.
That's no. See,
look at God.
No, you're taking. You're not giving.
Moving right along. Yeah. All right. Well,
So I won the score.
Huh?
I won the score.
You really didn't though, because I got you to put the in the phone.
I won. That's
you
just
didn't.
the way it works. So
Amanda sided with me, so I win 2-1.
No.
I think I agree with that.
No. She gave us.
So you're just gonna
She consulted. She gave us an understanding, but I don't think she sided with you.
She just said she sided with me.
She didn't mean that.
What? Okay, wrapping up. We just want to again thank Amanda for being a guest on our show. It was an amazing conversation. Thank you for sharing your story with us. It means so much. It's so important. And
to any guys out there, if you have a friend who beats on his women or is abusive and you don't do anything, you ain't shit.
Ain't shit. He ain't shit. You ain't shit. And y'all could be ain't shit somewhere else.
Yeah.
So don't be that guy. And yeah.
So in closing, thank you for listening to the episode. You can follow us on IG at Lovers Quarrel Show, on Twitter at Lovers Quarrel 7.
Mm-hmm.
If you have any questions, any comments, you want to give us a quarrel, you can email us at loversquarrelshow@gmail.com. Thank you again for listening to another episode of Lovers Quarrel.
This is your girl, Dani.
This is your guy, TJ.
And as always, we fuss.
We fight.
But we love. Bye.
Later.